When it's kind of the unknown, it can be a little bit intimidating. It can be a little bit frightening. But the main thing is that you took that leap. You jumped and you did it. And so that is a testament to your own strength, if you will, and your resilience, your ability to bounce back. So, and you will settle into it. So I've been through that journey before a couple of times, so I know how that feels. My name is Patrice Bryant, and I am a domestic violence survivor, a domestic abuse survivor. Purple Kids Foundation is my foundation. I'm the founder and CEO. And its mission is to educate, empower, enhance, and exalt. And I recently added at-risk teen girls and women survivors of domestic abuse through the tenets of knowledge, information, support, and services. My story actually began way before I met my husband. It actually began when I was growing up. While I was growing up, as you can see, I'm dark. I have a dark complexion, and I always felt a certain type of way about my complexion. In fact, it was so bad. I used to think that other Black girls of my complexion, that they would actually want to kill themselves, because who would want to be this complexion? I did get teased by a family member. That family member used to refer to me as Dark Vader. And I remember my mom, and I guess that was a memory that I probably suppressed at one time, because when I was talking to my mom about it, she said, yeah, I used to get on that family member about calling you that name. So that gave me a complex. And then in school, I used to get teased about my complexion. So that gave me another complex about myself. And I just felt like I wasn't good enough. I was actively involved in high school activities. I was on the yearbook, in the yearbook club, and I was also in the band. Started off playing the clarinet, and then I moved from playing the clarinet to being a majorette in the band. So I did a good job of masking it, but deep down inside, my self-esteem was low, and so was my self-confidence. Now, when I went to college, I attended Marsh Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. Things did get a little better for me, because I got a lot more attention, and it was good. It was positive attention, but I still didn't feel good about myself. My self-confidence was still low. And I did have a boyfriend when I was in college, but still, I didn't feel whole. I didn't feel complete. And it was not his fault. It all had to do with me. I believe it was in the spring of 1990, that's when I met my husband. I attended the Morehouse College graduation with a very good friend of mine. He and I are very good friends to this day. We've been friends for over 30 years, Professor Dak, D-A-C. I love him so much. And that's when I met my husband. And I couldn't believe that this, in my eyes, gorgeous man wanted to talk to me. I've never seen anybody look like him before. He was fair skinned, but he had blue eyes, and I've never seen a Black man with blue eyes, or Black person with blue eyes, ever in my life. Mm-hmm. So he was a very handsome guy, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, why are you interested in me? And so I got very attached to him quickly. Our courtship and our marriage was very quick. It started off, we met in May. He moved in with me in June, and then we were married September 1st, 1990. So it was quick. Mm-hmm. But I felt that he could make me happy, that he could help me to love myself, that he could give me that self-esteem and that confidence that I was looking for, that I was lacking. But he did not over time. I was young. I was only 22 years old. And there were red flags there. There wasn't any physical abuse going on at the time, but there were just red flags. It's not cute when he wants to spend 24/7 with you. I thought it was cute. Oh, you want to be with me all the time? That's not cute. Mm-hmm. That's one of the first signs of control. Mm-hmm. I want to be with you all the time. I want to know where you are. And there were other red flags along the way, like the jealousy. If he thought maybe in his mind that I was looking at another guy, he would get jealous. That's not cute either. That's another red flag. I even caught him on the phone with another female while we were living together. And I lost it, and he just kind of like smoothed things over. And I found out later on that this was a female that he had been talking to before me. He never really severed the ties, but he smoothed things over with me, and I accepted it and I continued on. So then when we got married, it started to progress and get worse. We were living with his in-laws, loved my mother-in-law and father-in-law, but we needed our own place. And then eventually moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's another sign, moving you away from your support system, the friends and family. And so I couldn't get access to them easily. Of course, staying connected with them by phone, but really couldn't go to see them. And the other thing was, I was the one that was the breadwinner, quote unquote. I was the one that had the college degree, and eventually I went from working in, if you will, corporate world to education, which is what I got my degree in, business education. So I was the one that had the steady job, the steady employment, the steady checks coming in, and his jobs were sporadic. Sometimes he'd work and sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes it was full-time, sometimes it was part-time. So I held the cards, if you will, and he used that. He used that in his manipulation of me to control that situation. He would tell me things like if he hit me or punched me, it would be something like, you just drive me crazy because I love you so much and I can't imagine my life without you. I just don't want to lose you. He would make me do things like look him in the eyes and say, promise me you'll never leave me, you never cheat on me, those type of things. It's amazing, when I tell women, it's amazing when someone can get inside your head and they can control you, manipulate you that way. That's very powerful. And I know people are like, well, how can you let that happen? My mom and dad were together in marriage for a little over 35 years until my father fell asleep in death. So I had an excellent role model of what, a good marriage, a good husband, a good father. How could you go out and marry someone that was a total opposite? Again, it goes back to that self-esteem and that self-confidence. So yes, I had a great role model, but I didn't follow that because everything had to center around me and how I felt about me. I remember we went to the grocery store one time and he thought I was looking at some guy. It was in Bloomfield, I believe. He thought I was looking at some guy in the grocery store. And it was my husband, myself, and his father. And he just got real nasty with me. I saw you looking at this guy. And I'm like, who are you talking about? I don't even know what guy. We got in the car and then we made another stop. His father got out to go in and he was driving. He actually turned around and was punching me in the back seat of the car. Because he just accused me of looking at this guy and I was denying it. So I had to deal with a lot of mental anguish. My emotions were just all over the place. During the course of our relationship, I gained a lot of weight. I remember one time when I was able to fly home from Virginia to Georgia. My parents paid for my ticket. I remember later on, the story was that my parents didn't even recognize who I was because I had gained so much weight. I never had an issue with weight. I was always the 5'8", slim, tall. So when I got with him, I went from like an 8'10" to like a size 22 women's, literally.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am. And so because my emotions were so messed up, I started eating, and my best friends at that time were McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. So anything fast food, because I found comfort in food and I began to put on the weight. I just went through so much. I remember he would have other women calling the house because he had me so screwed up in the head. I was trained. The phone rings twice. I hang up, I call back, that's when you pick up the phone. I know it, and I know to some people, this is like, Patrice, that is just crazy, but that's my story. And so I remember talking to a young girl, she was 21 at the time, and she was telling me, well, he's met my mom, and he told me that you're his roommate, and just all kind of crazy things. I'm like, sweetheart, I am his wife. I'm not his roommate, and we do live together, and we are still married. I remember one time we went to, I believe it was Greensboro, North Carolina. and he took me to the mall. And instead of him coming to the mall with me, this is what he did, Simone. He dropped me off at the mall, and I stayed there for several hours, and he was supposed to come pick me up at 9 o'clock. But I'm waiting outside. 9 o'clock comes, he's not there. 9:15, he's not there. 9:30, he's not there. So around 10 o'clock, he comes rolling up, and by this time I am livid because here I am. I don't know a soul in Greensboro. And you just drop me off, and then you come back to pick me up, but you're like an hour late. People are leaving the mall. The stores are closed. I can't go back in. And at that time, I didn't have a cell phone, so couldn't contact him. And so, later on, I found out that he actually went up there, you won't believe this, to see someone else. So he dropped me off at the mall, went to see her, and then came back to pick me up. Crazy. So even though I was younger than him, I think I was a little bit more mature than he was, because he was still trying to find himself. And for me, the straw that broke the camel's back is when he threatened my life. By this time, my father had already passed away, and he threatened to kill me. And basically he said, if you think your mother's seen one funeral, she's gonna see another one. And at this time, I had already left him. I had prayed to God, because I got to a point, Simone, I can't take this anymore. I can't. At the time, I was 32. And I'm like, I'm not fulfilling any of my dreams. I'm not living the life that I want. I'm miserable, unhappy, unhealthy. By that time, I had been diagnosed with diabetes when I was 28 years old. So I remember when I decided to leave him, I prayed to God about it first. And God gave me what I call strategy. He gave me the strategy that I needed to leave that relationship, because, Simone, everything worked out. My husband had a habit of going out. I refer to him as a single husband. So he was married, but he was still acting like he was single. So he would go out with his boys, and they would go to strip clubs and, and other little things. And so it just so happened that he had gone out the night before. And I remember calling two people. I called my good girlfriend. I'm going to call her TJ. And I'll call my mom, and I told them, this is what I want to do. And TJ offered for me to come stay with her and her husband, her then husband. And I told my mom what I was doing. So the night before, I did pack a bag. I put as much as I could in that bag. And when I realized he wasn't in the bed with me and he was in the sofa, I was like, Lord, how am I going to get this suitcase downstairs without waking him up? Plan was put the suitcase in the car first, come back up, finish getting ready for work, and then leave. And that's exactly what I did. I had an appointment, a doctor's appointment at 3 o'clock. I think it was, 3:30. But when I got there, I was nervous. I was anxious. I was just, my emotions were all over the place. And so when I did get in to see the doctor, and she started, how you doing today, Patrice? I just cried like a baby. I just cried. And she was like, what's wrong? What's going on, Miss Harris? What's going on? And I gave her some information, about how I was feeling, and that I was leaving my husband, and I had mixed emotions about it. And so she comforted me and everything. And then after that, I went to TJ's house. And I'll never forget, TJ opened the door. She's like, girl, how you doing? I thought you weren't coming. And I just bawled again. I just cried. I just cried, and she comforted me and welcomed me into her home, because even though it was the right thing for me to do, that was still a tough decision to leave that life, to leave him. He didn't know what I was doing, because I never revealed my plan to him. And once I left, I did think about going back, because I remember TJ and I had a conversation in her kitchen. And this was after I had talked to my mother-in-law and told my mother-in-law what was going on. And actually, it was my mother-in-law who said to me, you need to make a list, reasons to stay and reasons to leave. And I did exactly what she told me. I wrote it down. And once I wrote it down, the list of reasons to leave was longer than the list of reasons to stay. He knew where I worked. some kind of way he got a car. I don't know how. And he came to my job and he just begged me, can you please come on my job to see me? Please come on my job to see me. And so I did. And at the time he had a cell phone. I didn't even know the cell phone number. I didn't know he had a cell phone. I didn't know the number, anything like that. He was sneaky. So his phone rang and some guy, and he's like, I'm talking to my queen right now. I'll call you back later. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, and he wanted me to come back home. You're going to leave TJ and so-and-so's house and you're going to come back to the apartment. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, no. In my mind, I'm like, I'm not coming back to the apartment because you have a key. You're going to have access to me. I'm trying to get away from you. And I remember vividly, the passenger window was kind of cracked. And he bent down as I was cranking up the car, and he looked at me and he said, you go back over there and you pack your bag and you tell them you're coming back home.
So he threatened you, basically.
He threatened you. And and he said, that's when he told me, if you think your mother's seen one funeral, she's going to see another one. You thought I got rid of the gun. I didn't. I still have it. And the last thing he said to me was, he said, I love you. And so the whole time I was just like shaking my head, like agreeing with him. Yes, I'm coming back home. Yes, I'm having him think that I'm going along with what he's saying to me, because going back before, he had pulled a knife on me and he threatened to kill me, and he also threatened to kill himself. If I can't have you, nobody else can have you either. Mm-hmm. So that memory came back in my head, and then I knew he had a gun, and that memory, I said, this joke could really kill me. And I remember driving off, and I don't know, there were so many thoughts going on in my head. I was so nervous. I was trying to see, maybe I can get to Atlanta, because I have a brother at the time, younger brother that lived in Atlanta. I was like, if I can just get to Atlanta, because at the time, Atlanta's like 3.5 hours from Charlotte. I don't know. It's everything is by the grace of God that directed me and my steps, because I wound up at a McDonald's at a payphone, and I was able to call home collect, and a relative answered the phone. And when I heard that familiar voice, I lost it. I lost it. And, he was hysterical. I was hysterical, trying to tell him what was going on. He's trying to kill me. He's threatening to kill me. And eventually my sister got on the phone and she said, okay, go back to TJ's house. We'll come get you tomorrow. And I just remember screaming at her, no, y'all need to come get me right now. I'm not staying another night in Charlotte. Come get me now. He would hit me in places where you couldn't see the bruises. So he never hit me on my face. Mm-hmm. It was either my arms or my shoulders or my thighs. And then it's just the emotional and mental abuse. Nobody's going to want you but me. You're going to do what I say. And just, you don't love me if you don't do this. And if you love me, you would do this, and ask your family to do this and ask your family to do that. So it was a lot of emotional and mental abuse. And later on, Simone, I came to find out that he's had issues of his own. His own self-esteem and confidence was low, because he had issues. Even though he was a gorgeous man, very handsome guy, he had his own set of issues that he hadn't dealt with when he met me. And so that permeated, those issues permeated into my life, and kind of vice versa. So I'm looking to him to make me happy, help me build my self-esteem, my confidence. And he still hadn't found himself, and still had some self-esteem, confidence issues himself. And it's funny how you can live with somebody and still be oblivious to this, that he had a little coke habit. I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
And so that exacerbated the situation between us. So I'm glad that I was able to get out of that situation. I'm so glad that I had a support system, God first, and then family and friends, that I was able to, depend on to help me to get through that situation. And so years later, it took me a long time to heal. Now, I will tell women this, please go to therapy. I didn't. I regret it. I didn't. I depended on God first, and then my family and friends to help me get through it. I can still go to therapy. I'm still considering that. But in the meantime, it did take me a long time to trust again. It took me about 2 years after I divorced, I did start dating again, but that situation did not work out. And I want ladies to be careful about the people, especially if you're dating men, the men that you tell your story to. Because if they have good intentions, they're going to come and restore. But if they have not so good intentions, they're not going to do anything but take advantage of that story and make the situation worse. So I'm not saying that the gentleman that I dated about 2 years after that, he never put his hands on me or never mentally or emotionally abused me, but he didn't help me either. It's kind of like a situation where, wow, that guy did all that stuff to you and you stayed with him for 12 years. So he still wasn't what I needed. So since him, I've been single, and just kind of going through, trying to rebuild my life and, get myself together. And so I feel like at this point, I've arrived. I stayed with my mom for 5 years. During that time, I lost the weight. I developed healthy eating habits. I put myself through school and went to Albany State University and got my master's degree in school counseling. I did have a temporary job when I first moved in with my mom. In August of that same year, I had I was hired by the local school system to be a work-based learning teacher. And then, like I said, during the course of that time, working full-time, going to school part-time, it's kind of like I came up with my own 5-year plan. And I told my mom in 5 years, I'm going to get my master's and I'm moving back to the Atlanta area. And that's exactly what I did. And within 2 years, I bought my first home and still in that home today.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've come a long way and still have a long way to go. But now it did take me a long time to come up with, to form the foundation because of fear, of the shame, of the judgment. And so out of this was birthed the Purple Kiss Foundation. The Purple Kiss Foundation was birthed really out of my story of domestic abuse and survival and how I was able to take my life back. I had heard about domestic abuse, but we never talked about it in my home. We never talked about it around my girlfriends. It was something that I was unfamiliar with. And when I had to go back and think, the first time I think I kind of experienced it as a teenager, I was seeing this guy that was a couple of years older than me. We went to 2 separate schools and we were talking and he was trying to get my attention. And I remember he jerked my arm and did it in front of my cousin, one of my cousins who lived in Oklahoma. And I remember her saying something to him like, hey, don't do that to my cousin. Don't pull her arm like that. And so that was really my first experience with it, but never really talked about it, didn't really know about it. And it's amazing. Sometimes your eyes are not open until you experience it for yourself. And that's kind of sad, but in my case, it's true. So I wanted to go back and let's start with girls, teenage girls, grades 7 through 12, because that's that age, especially middle school, when they're going through those identity issues, like who am I, how I feel about myself, do people like me, why don't people like me, how I feel about myself. I'm comparing myself to other girls. She's prettier, I like her hair is longer, she's shapelier, all the boys so I wanted to go back and work with those girls and then also work with women survivors of domestic violence, because I'm a survivor, and work with women who have been through that abusive, intimate partner relationship, and now they're motivated and ready to move on with their life and live a better life, because it can be done. It can be done. And so that's the purpose and the mission of the foundation.
That is, I have goosebumps. That is goosebumps. Number one, you tell your story beautifully.
Thank you.
Beautifully. Number two, you are beautiful.
Thank you.
When you first came on camera, I was like, how is she lighting her space? The light is bouncing off your skin.
Oh, that's a ring light.
Yeah, I would too, but it's not lighting me, it's lighting you. But I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned about your truth, about your story. Did they give you any idea as to them knowing his behavior or anything like that? Had they ever said anything to you?
Actually, no, but I will tell you this. He and I eloped. We eloped in Fulton County, Georgia, September 1st, 1990. And when we met, we met and everything. And I remember having a conversation with my mother-in-law. And you know what she said to me? She said, I wish you would have talked to me before you married my son. So, when a mother says something like that about her own child, I'm not saying that she knew that he was dominating, controlling, things of that nature, but there was something that she knew about him that she wished that I had talked to her first. Mm-hmm. So they didn't know about the abuse. I never said anything to them. Now, I will say this, Simone, that after he and I divorced, I never spoke to him, ever. And people will ask me all the time, you ever hear from him? No. You ever talk to him? No, I don't have anything to say. Yep. I did hear from him once, and that was through Facebook Messenger. And by the way, I wanted to tell you this: I am working on my book, my story, and that portion will be in the book. What he said to me on Facebook Messenger. But as far as I know, no, his parents did not know of his abusive nature.
Also very blessed with a very rich support system with people who love you. Mm-hmm. And I find that a lot of survivors and a lot of victims don't have that.
Right.
And so they find themselves spinning in this experience with no anchor, nobody to pull them out, nobody to set them straight, no one to call, nothing. And so that's a very large reason why a lot of victims stay, because they just they're scared to get out, number one, and two, they don't have a support source that they can grab onto in order to get out and feel safe and secure.
The foundation is going to be that support for ladies who may be in situations like that. They've come through it, they don't want to go back, but it's hard not to go back because of financial reasons, or maybe because of the children, maybe because of the fear of the unknown. Like, I'm about to get out here on my own for the first time. I don't know what that's like. That's that fear, face everything and run, or face everything and rise, and so I want my foundation to be that support system to those ladies that find themselves in that situation. Like, I have God, if they do believe in God, but then I don't have friends or I don't have family that can, like you said, help me to keep me out from going back to that situation and pull me through and say, come on, girl, you got it. You can do it. Everything is within you. It's going to take some time, but you got it. You can do it. And I'm here for you every step of the way.
So we're really going to be trying to establish clearly what love is. What love yourself looks like, and what love in a relationship looks like. Yes. And what it doesn't. One of the purposes of this type of abuse is to completely really just shatter what the foundation of love is, what you've been raised to believe that love is. And that is so mind-blowingly disorienting. I don't think people understand that, because you don't know it until you're experiencing it.
It took me a long time. Like I said, I got divorced. My divorce was final on October 16, 2002. I remember that date very well. So I did date someone. I started dating someone in the fall of that year. And but I feel, Simone, that I still wasn't quite ready. I thought I was, but I wasn't. So our relationship was not a good relationship. And actually, it was a long distance relationship. So I'm down here being Miss Goody Two Shoes in Atlanta. And lo and behold, I found out that he was living with another female. So there goes my trust issues down the drain. It's kind of like, girl, get out there and dating. And so you get out there, and then, like I said, I still wasn't ready. But then, your trust issues are broken again. So it took me a long time. It took me, because we were together for maybe about 5 or 6 years, kind of on and off. And I'm the type of person, I'm going to try to give you the benefit of the doubt, because I know that we have flaws and we're imperfect. I know that. But after a while, when you're trying to have a conversation with your so-called boyfriend and he says, pray to God about it and, see what God says. When God told me, girl, you need to walk away from him, that's exactly what I did. Mm-hmm. So it took me years, I would say maybe 10 years or so. And I know that's a long time, but I kind of took my time to even rebound from that relationship and say, okay, I just need to spend some time just working on Patrice. And so the process was like, I would meet people or meet men, but I automatically have my guard up. Mm-hmm. And my thought process was, I'm not going to, I may like you, but I'm not going to fall in love with you because I'm going to guard my heart because I don't know who you really are. And I've had conversations with my best friend, Professor, I call him Professor Dak, for a while. He's like my younger brother, so to speak, but people are so quick to show you the representative of who they are instead of the real person. And so you've got to learn to filter through all of that. And so my thing is take your time to get to know people. So I was watching a Madea play the other day, and Madea said you need to get to know somebody in all 4 seasons: fall, winter, spring, and summer. Mm-hmm. How do they react around their family? How do they act when they get mad, when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're disappointed? You need to see all of that, because the representative can only be around for so long, and then the real person is going to come through, because you can't keep that facade up for long.
Yeah.
And so with the trust issue, like I said, it took me about 10 years to get to that point where I trust. I believe that actions speak louder than words, and that your character speaks louder than even that. Mm-hmm. My father was a man of integrity. He was a man that if he said he was going to do something, he was going to do it. But it's like my dad was a person that I'm going to do it whether somebody's watching me or not. I'm going to do the right thing, I should say. Mm-hmm. And that's a person of integrity. And so I learned to start, I'm like, those are the things I'm looking for. Are you consistent? Mm-hmm. Or are you a person of character? Mm-hmm. Do we have chemistry, and do we have compatibility? And those are what I call my 4 core essential C's that I have to have in a relationship. And if I don't have that, and then it's not going to work for me, because I'm not shortchanging myself. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be with someone who wants to be with me. So through that trust process, I did go through a period where I may like you, but I don't trust you. So I'm always going to have my guard up, and I'm only going to let you into my life so much. I'm not going to give you everything. Mm-hmm. And so it took some time to get through that and stop judging people through the eyes that I looked at my abuser or even my previous boyfriend, because Patrice, that's not him. Mm-hmm. This is somebody else. And so just really taking my time to get to know this person to the best of my ability. And then when those red flags start popping up, instead of collecting them and storing them, if you will, recognize what they are, question, talk, communicate. Never assume, because sometimes what happens when you assume or imagine, but just ask questions and talk and try to get the information. And then when God reveals it to you, believe what you see. Because when people show you who they are, believe them. I think Oprah Winfrey said that, right? It's like, I can't believe. I know Madea said it too, but I can't believe. Yeah, that's who that person is. That's who they really are. So I'm at the point in my life, and I have been for the last few years, where I do trust. I'm more open. The older I got, the more open-minded I am about things. Like I said, so when I meet someone, whether it's for a personal relationship, professional relationship, I go into it not with the guard up, so to speak, if you will, but, just cautiously, and then letting the relationship play out. How did I feel going through that journey? There were mixed emotions. Like I said, there were times when I was scared, like, I don't know, I was self-doubt, but it just takes time to get through that process until you get to a point where you're like, I'm absolutely sure. And you have to be sure of what you want, what you need, and you really, really have to love yourself and define what that love means to you. I'm loving myself. So what does that mean to me? How am I going to treat me? and how do I want other people to treat me as well? And that is so key. And we know that 4-letter word, LOVE, has such a powerful impact on our emotions. It is incredible the things that little word with a big impact has on our life. So we really need to do some soul searching. I had to do that. I had to go back and just delve into Patrice. Like, who is she? Who does she want to become? What is love to her? What does she want? What does she need from a professional or a personal relationship? And what is she willing to get it?
I think people that their underlying belief is that if you're not with someone, that you're incomplete. You just have to do what feels right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what feels right now is being a great mom and doing the best I can for other survivors and victims, and and the figuring out the self-care. And
yes.
And I find that the more you grow along your journey, the more that'll change with each level you get to on your journey. So self-care in the beginning, self-care is hard to explain to people because everyone's like, they're so bewildered as far as what they want and what they like, and taking care of themselves and just factoring themselves into the equation is just so hard to do when you're just out of a domestic violence situation. Like, I have to take care of myself. How do I do that? What do I do?
Right.
It's really hard to work yourself back into the equation. So you really just have to kind of like hold people's hands through it and make suggestions and just support.
Oh yeah, I'm a big proponent of self-care. Some of my people at work call me the self-care guru because that's something that I really practice. And in fact, I just did a Clubhouse. I was on a Clubhouse panel about a week or so ago. One of my girlfriends invited me to be on there to talk about self-care, and I just kind of brought up there's a difference between self-care and self-maintenance. Because a lot of times we get those terms confused. Self-care is more of action, and self-maintenance more as what it is maintaining, like going to get your nails done, going to get your hair done. Those are more or less self-maintenance as opposed to self-care. Self-care, an example of that would be like going for a walk outside, getting some fresh air, spending quality time with family and friends, having great conversations, meditation, because I do a meditation every Wednesday night with my sister-in-law has a foundation called Be Genuine, Be Kind, and they have Be Well Wednesdays. And so every Wednesday at 8:00, we do a 30-minute meditation. It's not based on zodiac signs. It's not based on spirituality. It's really based on just spending 30 minutes of getting in tune with yourself, with your body. So we do a body scan, breathing exercises. They've even added doing a couple of neck exercises where we turn our neck and things like that, and then just doing a body scan from head to toe, and then we do positive affirmations. And I will tell you, Simone, that had brought me so much clarity. It is unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
So now when I come out of the meditation, I have to have a pen and a paper next to me because my ideas start coming.
Yeah.
All the things, ideas start coming quickly. So it gives me a lot of clarity. And so those are things, just a few examples of self-care, just really taking the time to give back to yourself. And I'm really, really big on that because it's important. It's important to have that balance in your life. I think it's wonderful that you're using your organization and your platform to get these stories out. Our voices need to be heard. And so I thank you for using your talents and your gifts and your resources to get these stories out because, like I said, our voices need to be heard and our stories need to be told.